ladies and gentlemen, yes, we have the august presence of the doyens of the real estate industry, and it's my absolute delight to welcome them on the stage as they come together to share their thoughts in this exclusive conversation. First up, we have with us none other than Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, founder and managing director, Hiranandani Group, also the vice chairman of the National Real Estate Development Council. A warm welcome to you, sir. Well, up next, we also have the veteran in real estate financing, who's also a firm believer in nurturing entrepreneurship. Please put your hands together as I invite Mr. Khushru Jijina to please come on stage. And well, up next to also conduct this exclusive conversation, we have with us Mr. Neeraj Bansal, who's also played the role of a market maker through collaboration with the ASEAN and Hong Kong member firms. So please put your hands together to welcome all our three speakers here on the dais. And I'm going to quickly hand it over to Mr. Neeraj Bansal. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. And what a pleasant surprise it would be, when we have, insights coming in from such gentlemen there. Lots been spoken about, by Mr. Batra, but I must say that, I would say that Realty Plus has saved the best for last. It may be a cliche term, but I would put it in a very serious mode as well, that definitely they have saved the best for the last. Very happy to be here. Welcome, gentlemen, for the session. I've had some personal experience of working as well as interacting on various industry issues with both the gentlemen there, and certainly during this discussion we'll try and see that we get some views and inputs from them on the overall industry outlook and how things are shaping up there. If I may start, Mrs. Jijina, with you first. You are been a financier and an industry veteran. So how do you feel the industry is changed and is evolving, over the years that you've been part of this industry?
Oh, that's a short question, but a long answer. I'll try to keep it short. So yes, there has been an absolute sea change. I think everybody knows that. It's not breaking news that the whole industry has changed. I've been associated with this industry for almost 2 decades now, Neeraj. And if I break it up, let's break it up into parts so it makes life easy. Let's start with the regulatory. In the good old days, in fact, Niranjan Bhai will also agree with me, there was no regulation. So you put up a project, you get money, and you immediately invest that money into something else. Then came RERA, then came GST, etc., etc. While they had their own challenges for sure, but then they brought in a lot of transparency. They brought in discipline. They also brought in professionals, they brought in corporates. Otherwise, corporates were never there in real estate. So to that extent, I would say that the regulations have helped change this industry look better and transparent. Let's look at the customer preferences. If you look at the customer preferences, again, if you go back to the good old days, the customers were very happy as long as they got the 4 walls. That was it. Later on in life, people started asking for, and again, developers like Dr. Hiranandani spoiled them with much better products, swimming pool, gym, a better community. Post-COVID, the preferences have changed again, or I would say evolved. They want balcony, an extra room, maybe a creche, maybe a supermarket nearby so that they don't have to go far, etc., etc. I see this evolving. I definitely believe that the customers will look for even green buildings and sustainable buildings in the future. So that is the change which is constantly happening in the customers. Look at the asset classes. Again, if you look at the asset classes, some years ago, the asset classes which are predominant were what? Were basically residential and commercial. Today, if you speak about the asset classes, you have warehousing, logistics. I think everybody spoke about, I think you were also a moderator for that today. And you have co-living, which is coming up fast. There's co-working, which has already got established. Logistics, warehouses, I already spoke about, and data centers. So again, the asset classes have changed. But now if I today look at the industry from my eyes, frankly, a few years ago, I was one of the persons who said that this market or this industry is consolidating very fast. In fact, many people didn't like my remark, which was 5-6 years ago, that how could you make such a statement? And today, if one really looks at it, what's really happened to the industry? If I look at it from my eyes, it's looking more like an FMCG today. It's much more disciplined. You have a few players at the top who I would call all India, not necessarily all the cities, but yes, all India. They are competing among themselves. Then you have players who have concentrated in each micro market, going deep. It could be micro market, somebody would say that, no, I'm only good in redevelopment. Somebody would say that I'm good in SRA, etc., etc. So again, that's niche has been established. A very clear distinction is also coming about in real estate for the first time, that who is the producer and who is the supplier of land, means who is the raw material supplier, which was never there before. So everybody is going into what they think is good for them. So that distinction is definitely coming. This whole partnership model that everybody is now a partner, it's like an FMCG. You are a producer, you need a raw material supplier, you have the supply chain, and you also need a financer. And that's what is really happening and changing the whole thing, including the technology, which I think pre-COVID, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't believe that you could sell flats online. So the whole thing is changing more towards the FMCG sector. So that's the evolution or the change I have seen in this last 20 years.
Wonderful. A great answer to a loaded question, as you said as well, on it. And so, Mr. Hiranandani, if I come to you, your thoughts on, because you've seen this industry very closely, and I think all the asset classes which Mrs. Jijina spoke about, you're present in all of them, in terms of the very early adopters as well, to fast mover to get to them as well in that. So understanding the trends and getting to them faster, and execution rigor also, which like the Gift City example which you have shared earlier also, has been some of the fantastic examples that you've set for the industry as well. What are your thoughts on that? How has the industry changing? And also, if you could throw some more perspective on how our industry can be more consumer centric as well.
I think Mr. Jijina has quite clearly given the roadmap of what the changes have taken place. So I think the entire platform is very, very well explained by him. So I don't really have too much to add on that, except for the fact that there are several changes which have taken place which need to be emphasized. So for example, he talked about the changes relating to RERA. Now, if you look at RERA, what has been the ultimate result of RERA being introduced? The first and foremost, which is mentioned by him, is transparency. So, what is the product that I'm getting? What is the amenities going to be there? Do I have an approval of the project when I'm buying it? What is the entire course of action? When am I going to complete this particular project? Additionally, we are talking about that 70% of the money has to be escrowed for that particular project. So all in all, we are seeing a complete sea change, pre-RERA to post-RERA, in the amount of financing that a project will really require. Have I sold only 10% of my project, but I still have to complete that project? If I have two separate phases of my project, even if I get surpluses in the first one, till I don't complete it, I can't cross-use that 70% in the second project. So what is the end result of it? That instead of Mr. Jijina or any financial institution financing, let's say I needed 50 crores hypothetically in terms of money that needed for the purposes of the project. Today, I will need at least 150 crores of rupees to be set aside in order to do so, in order to see that the completion takes place. And the rapidity of the sale may be good, may not be good, and at the same time, that additional amounts would have to be done. So the people who have been used to it pre-RERA in terms of funding and financing are pretty shocked that the requirements of funds post-RERA for projects that they are undertaking is maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times, maybe 5 times the kind of equity and debt that you will be needed in order to get the project completion. Now, this is something which the old school of thought cannot digest so easily, because A, they may not have the money or they may not have the access to it. And that is exactly why Mr. Jijina has clearly said that the prediction that he made several years ago before RERA has actually come true, because RERA has expedited that process. And this consolidation is not necessarily taking because the big are taking over the small. There are very good small companies who do one project at a time and are eminently successful. So you're seeing that. And there are large companies which have gone into difficulty in spite of the fact that they are large. So I don't think large and small is really there. It's the effectiveness of understanding the issue, as Mr. Jijina has correctly put across, and then actually funding and financing those issues. Also the fact that all the financial institutions are not savvy to the new situation. So many of them are not able to grasp the aspect that you really need to do it. And the secret is always how to get the project completed. Because once you get the project complete, irrespective of the method of financing that you do, which is from the installments of the buyers, or it is your own equity, or it is a debt which you have taken from those people, or any other debt that comes onto the books, you have to understand the situation that the entire financing and capital requirements of projects has completely taken a C-turn, which leaves us to those projects which are not got completed, whether pre-RERA or post-RERA and all that. The government of India has recognized this change. And because of this recognition of the change, they approved what is called the Swami Fund, which was actually to raise 10,000 crores, which equity was given by the central government, and financed it in order to see that you would have an end result to that. Now they've said 10,000 crores, and I believe with great difficulty in 2 years, they've been able to at least approve the financing of 10,000 crores. The requirement of the industry is 1 lakh crores in order to complete the ongoing projects through the country. So we actually need to recognize the fact that the changes have taken place, and in order to complete these projects, and my belief is that if such funding is available through the Swami Fund, with various other funds, banks, financial institutions will be there, there'll be a zero NPA to any real estate project. Because the secret of security for a project is its completion. And as I've spoken to many bankers, and they are all said that if they are able to manage to get a project complete and occupy and get the occupation certificate, there's almost zero NPA in that segment. But if you get stuck in a project where either due to some approval process or due to funding processes or due to not getting adequate sales, all these factors create a deadlock on that. NPA will be there for everybody, whether it is for the buyer of the product who doesn't get the delivery of it, or it is the equity investor, or it is the bank or financial institution which creates the debt. So in reality, what we really need to state is that this change has taken place. So while we recognize the positive fact of transparency, regularity, and that's why many of the corporates have come into the field and fray and doing extremely well, successfully, and growing tremendously fast, we have to recognize this aspect of it across the board. And I think Realty Plus who should highlight this issue very clearly, that if you do that and complete the projects, irrespective of the method of financial closures that we really need to do, I promise you, India will have zero NPA in real estate. And I'm making a very tall statement, and it's true, because I've seen those people, banks, financial institutions, who are willing to take that extra step forward in order to fund it under adverse circumstances, if any, and complete the project. NPAs disappear.
I can see that Realty Plus team is saying that a couple of sound bites are already done, with this statements on that. So, but coming to this point which you raised, and also Mr. Jijina, you highlighted as well that the paradigm has changed. The way of operation is changing, the governance is changing, the way of in terms of the financing is getting front loaded versus what it used to be earlier. There from an equity perspective. And if I get you here, Mrs. Jijina, in terms of you've seen these changes happening very closely, and you've been part of some of these changes also as instrument to kind of get them done. And some, of course, have been happening with the way the markets operated as well. So in terms of when you look at these years that have gone, what are your learnings that you would like to share?
You seem to be asking me all difficult questions. Huh? So actually, this entire industry, and I think everybody in this room will be able to relate to it, has gone through one of the most challenging times, pre-COVID. And we didn't see one tsunami, two tsunamis, we saw multiple tsunamis. Whether it was demonetization, whether it was RERA, GST, IL&FS crisis, just kept coming. We as lenders have also seen a lot of challenges. While I can go on and on with my learnings, but I think two things come to my mind. One was very clear, and both sound very basic, that you can't have an asset liability mismatch. You just can't have that. So it is equally important to concentrate on the liability side as much everybody does on the asset side. So in fact, one of the learnings and I want to share with everybody is that normally it is the liability side which will make you bankrupt, not the asset side. And we normally don't concentrate on that. The second thing, mainly for the NBFCs, is that when you're funding for land, do it through a fund structure. Because at the end of the day, RBI doesn't recognize that the land, it takes time for approvals, etc., and that the 90-day meter starts. So I think these are the two, I would say, coming top of mind. But I here want to take advantage of this opportunity you gave me, and actually what Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani said. Two positives have also come out in this last few years for me. If I take a step back, and I've been saying this even in the good old days, that I prefer to concentrate more on the person who's taking the money than the project itself, the person, the promoter. And I think in these challenging years, that has held me in good stead. I must make this statement today. 9.5 out of 10 times I've gone out of the project, I've got my money back because I backed the right promoter. Number two, and I think what you mentioned, one of the things which is very important which we did in this last few years was we sat with each and every developer, and it was not a tailor-made solution, it was a different solution for different people to ensure that the project gets completed. And this is sounding very simple, but I don't understand why, and I keep on telling to my other fellow lenders also, that lending to real estate is very different from lending to other corporates or manufacturing. Because there you have got a factory, etc., you can't really realize money. In real estate, even if your covers have fallen, let's say even if your covers have fallen for a minute, and you can say that out of 100 rupees you lend, you're going to receive only 90 rupees. I would still put in that extra 5 rupees to complete to recover the 90 rupees. Otherwise, that entire 100 rupees is going to go for a loss. And this is exactly what we followed. And that is why today we came out much better than the others. So these were the two positive examples in a difficult year for us.
And any learnings you would like to share in terms of, what the issue which Mr. Hiranandani also brought out, the fact that the paradigms changed for the new projects for sure, but there are certain old projects, which are carried on, and there are some issues with that.
According to me, in the lending space, this is a huge opportunity. Because like Swami, who is senior secured, so he's actually sitting on top of even the first charge holder. So in fact, if I look at it from the lender's perspective, it is a better opportunity than to even fund the new projects today, if you ask me.
Interesting. And Mr. Jijina, Mr. Hiranandani, if I come to you, and if we move to, given the time to move to another segment as well, when you look at, that and you mentioned also that, the buyer is not looking at only, like what Mr. Jijina said, just the four walls. There are many more things as a built-up environment that are now required in that, and there have been many more changes that are coming in as well. So how would you look at the importance of, the after-sale services, property management, and various things that have to be done by the developer now? What would be your view on that?
हमने customer को बिगाड़ दिया. We have actually shown them something beautiful, and now they're enjoying it. Earlier we would give a swimming pool, and now they want a health club, they want a sauna, they want a massage, they want everything. They want e-commerce on their doorsteps. In Powai, you want 15 minutes delivery of the product. I mean, whether it's a pizza or it's a product to be delivered, at night, 12 o'clock you order it, 6 o'clock in the morning you've delivered with all the items. You want a hospital which should have everything at the doorsteps. You want 3 different schools, an ICSE school, a CBSE school, this school. Then they want a course with IIT, and now we have, in Thane, we have an integrated course, and this year 14 students got admitted into IITs of India from our school alone. Now, there's an expectation that you will deliver this kind of thing. You want quality homes, you want to be able to walk around the place, and after COVID, it's got even better. I mean, you want an extra room, so we upgrade you from 2-bedroom to 3 bedrooms, and because now the children are also on the VC, and you work from home and other things are there. So I think basically aspiration mode is done. And thanks to banks and financial institutions willing to give home loans at very competitive rates, I think it's fantastic. So if a corporate borrows money from State Bank of India, he won't get it less than 10, 11, 12%. But if the peon of the same company takes a home loan from State Bank of India, he'll get it at 7%. So the home loan segment, which has got the lowest NPA in the entire world, it's less than 2% for the bad financial institution. I'm talking about retail home loans. So what has happened is that money is available for those who wanted to upgrade their homes, whether they wanted to buy new homes. They're getting now 20-year loans, and because interest rates are going up, people are willing to increase that 20-year loan to 25-year loan so that the EMIs are lower. So buying in terms of home loans is completely changed, and the kind of expectations that a buyer wants is gone up the roof, and why not if they can afford it? And we are here to spoil them, and we love to do it for them, and we do it in our townships, we do it at home, and so many builders are doing it better and better every day through the country, this thing. And I think we are now, in the next 10 years, you will see different segments which will have different expectations. So at the luxury segment, there is a different expectation. In the mid segment, there's a different expectation. At the affordable segment, it's still not so onerous. And people just want the 4 walls as a necessity because they want to move away. But look at the opportunity in real estate. My belief that in the Mumbai region, with the infrastructure development, the Cross Harbour Bridge, opening of the whole thing, 50% of our population live in jhopatpattis. Half of them can afford to buy a house of the size which they are living in. And they will move because they all want to upgrade themselves. And if they can do it, and again, banks and financial institutions are willing to give it. So if you get schemes like the PMAY scheme and other things to do, and land availability and all that, the growth of real estate in the next year will be at least 15 to 25% growth in terms of numbers, 5 to 7 to 10% in terms of prices. But the growth is stupendous in the residential segment. Commercial, big wishy-washy talk. Work from home is working, so commercial will not be there. There's a big rebound. As Mr. Batra just mentioned over here, A-grade commercial spaces are just not available. Good quality, I'm talking about. So I think the commercial spaces are also going to grow, and the other segments, as already mentioned by Mr. Jijina, is also growing very fast pace, some little slower, some little fast. Warehousing is growing very fast. Data centers are growing 1,000% every year. So there's an opportunity inside. So I think overall, real estate is going to see a huge growth on it, and opportunities in terms of the buyer, they're going to get the moon. So they're very happy.
Great. The time just evaporates, when you are with, such industry veterans around it. So let me make the use of this opportunity to get, in the audience, I would believe, we'll have financial institution, people, as well as from a developer community there. If you were to give advice, right, from a future perspective there, 2, 3 points if you would like to highlight, Mr. Jijina, first you, and then Mr. Hiranandani as a last notes on it.
Yeah, sure. So in fact, just before the so-called advice you are asking for, in fact, if I was just going through today's agenda, and I think it was all about growth, positivity, different asset classes, everything is growing. I agree with that. I think whether the data is saying that a consumer will, demand will go 4 times, and there's a data point that 65,000 crores will be the industry of real estate, 13% by 25 will be our contribution to GDP, etc., etc., etc. Before I say a few words on this so-called advice, as I mentioned, markets have consolidated. There are few players playing the all-India game. My advice to the others would be, go deep into don't try to follow what others are doing. So in other words, if you are good in, say, a Mira Bhayandar market, please go deep into that before you start jumping into a Borivali market. I think that would be one of my advices. Second would be, please use technology. I think many developers have still not understood that technology is not to be used only for selling. I think it really brings down your costs. And today, this is like an FMCG, so the margins have come down. It's not like the good old days. The third and very important one would be financing. I think please look at your liability side before you grow. If you have to degrow, if you have to sell some assets, do some joint ventures and just become a landowner, please do it. Get your balance sheet in order before you actually start growing. And even if you want to grow, please have financial closure. I think if I would take a step back, the next 4-5 months are crucial. While we are all talking about growth and euphoria, if I would really look at it, I think next 4-5 months are crucial. Not because that India will go into recession. I'm really worried about the Ukraine war. If something goes out of whack, I think the sentiments are going to go down. And the last, which it's very different from what I used to believe myself, so I'll share this with everybody. And so, in other words, since he's sitting here, I'll say, don't copy him. In other words, today I believe scale is the enemy of profit. So all what you did, I don't think others should copy. No 100 acres township, abhi bhul jao. I think just go for projects which you can get out in 3 to 5 years. It's not everybody's game. Scale is the enemy of profit is what I would end up by saying. Yeah.
Wonderful. Focus on core competencies and strengthen them, in fact, more.
I kind of totally sign off on all that. Though as he said correctly, I've done to the contrary. But the two aspects of it, I'm just going to little expand on what he said about technology and study. One of the things builders do not do is to study the market. For instance, if FMCG wants to take out a new shampoo, they will do a market research. What should be the type of shampoo? What should be the price range? What should be the packaging? What should be the positioning? What should be the thing? The builders don't really study the size. What he said, and I'm going to say, oh, Mr. Oberoi or Mr. Hiranandani is now making a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom apartment, and he's selling, so we should also make it. They don't do the market research necessary, which is there for the purposes of creating your product, which is actually going to sell. Number 2, the price points which you can actually do the sale. If these two aspects of studies are done carefully, the market is unlimited, and unlimited in every sense of the term. So if you can actually position your product correctly, and all the other industries seem to be doing it better than we do it. So let's talk about hotels. You have the Taj Palaces is on one end, the Taj Regular would be there, the mid-segment would be Vivanta, and then you would have the Ginger and the other segments to do it. So what do they do? Even the Taj doesn't have the ego to say that everywhere I will do a Taj Palace. So they also know that they're going to make a Taj Palace, but they're going to make a Vivanta, and they're also going to make a Ginger. The builders also need to make that market study, find out what the market segment is there. Of course, understand what your requirements of finance and financing and closure is very, 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 very important. But having said that, I find that most of the builders are just copy-paste of what somebody else has successfully done. And it's not necessary that because he's successful, I will be successful. And the same thing applies to me. I cannot say that because somebody else is successful in a particular market segment, I will also be segment to do it. For example, I may not be as successful in the affordable segment because the people who come to me don't want that. Even the small size apartment, they expect luxury in 400 square feet apartment. So when they come and see my 400 square feet apartment, they say, oh, you don't have air conditioning. Oh, you don't have this kitchen done with this particular thing. You don't have this marble. Now, I said, look, I thought this was an affordable segment. He said, but then I can get it cheaper from somebody else. So affordable is not in your domain. So we have to understand what is good for me, what is the positioning that I should do for the marketplace. And I think if you do that, the growth story which Jijina has just given up, I think is going to be true for it. But if you have positioned your market wrong, you will not get your sale. So while A will be very successful, B will not be successful, not because there's no market. The market is huge. But if you position yourself wrong and you produce the wrong product, you're bound to fail. So I think financing, number one, positioning and actually doing a market study and delivering a product which the market will approve. And what is your branding say? Are you in a palace range? Are you in the Vivanta range or the affordable? Because you make money in all the three. So it's not that the palaces are making more money than the ginger. The ginger also makes equal money. But it's only the positioning of the marketplace which becomes important. And real estate, it's much more important than this FMCG to make that study, because you can always pull out in the FSMG. But if you have made a big tower, you can't pull it down, unless the Supreme Court orders it.
No, absolutely. And the acknowledgement is fairly there. And certainly, and I think the parallel which you said, from a FMCG industry and and the hotel industry as well. And I think I've always felt that when you look at the auto industry, it just defines it in a very easy and also appropriate manner, as well. And I think the rules have changed, as we discussed also. So much has changed from a regulatory front also, as well as in terms of operating style and operating approach as well there. And I think the examples are pretty much there in the other industries to follow through as well. It's just about the rigor of accepting that things have changed and actually then adopting them in a very strong and executing manner there in that. So with that, I would bring this session to a close. I think it's been fantastic. There have been several lessons which have been shared in this entire discussion, and some of the advice, I would say particularly which we had in the last section, some of that is very, very specific, and it's just about application from a perspective of whatever operation you are in. I think if we apply that, whether it's a positioning, whether it's a upfront financing, whether it is getting the financial closure, whether it is about the operational discipline, some of those parts are which will eventually lead to success for all of us, and we are all here for the industry, and we look forward to greater years for this industry there. So with that, thank you very much there. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And while I request you to please remain on the stage for just a minute, if I could also request Mr. Neeraj Bansal to please present a token of our gratitude to both of our doyens of the industry. So, Mr. Neeraj, if I may please request you to do the honors. And absolutely. Sometimes to get the right answers, we need the right questions. Well, on that beautiful note, we're going to request all of you to come together for a group photograph as well.